we're just gonna start. That's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna start. No fanfare, no frills. It's Wednesday, ladies and gents. It is time for the Mattriarchy. It's actually past time, but that's okay. We are here today to discuss the Superman event, House of Brainiac, and it's gonna be fun. I think I am joined today by the Metal, who I believe did not read the book. Am I correct in that?
No, I did not.
Hey, well, we'll have to make it work anyway. We got Twitless, who's read it like twice.
Hey,
and we've also got over there Cartoonicus, who I think you only read the book once.
Once and now 0.37 times.
Excellent. Hopefully we will also be joined by Hutch later on. I will see how his schedule lines up and everything. But yeah, here we are. This is the event. Josh Williamson has been hinting at it throughout the pages of Superman that we've been reading here on the semi-regular. Hey, speak of the devil. Maybe. Are you there, Hutch?
Well, maybe not after you just called him the devil.
Well, it's just an expression there, Cartoonicus. I don't really.
I'm sure with how angry he is, he wants to be the devil right now.
I'm not sure. Let's see. I think his OBS is giving him fits. Can you hear us? We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
This stupid thing gets pressed accidentally. This little mute button. I never use it, but it has gone off 3 times this week and ruined my shows and stuff. So
I've got one of those too. Yeah, occasionally it bumps. Yeah.
Yeah. What is wrong with my? Oh, I know. I'll go fix it. You don't have to wait for me.
Fizz is in the chat saying, "Hi, everybody. How easy is it to write a hero who has you overcome no challenges? Or has to overcome no challenges?
Has to overcome no challenges.
Easy? How easy is it to make them interesting? I think is probably the more appropriate question, because you have to have like some type of hook, and you have to be a good writer, period, to make somebody who has no challenges to overcome interesting to read.
I will say that if that's shade thrown at Superman, I will say that I think that's a little unfair because they have written
to overcome.
I was going to say I think Superman's had plenty to overcome. Even in some of the old Golden Age days, they found ways to kind of
Well, and I think also it would be worth mentioning that you asking the question, what do you mean by challenges, right? So, like, you get a Hercule Poirot, right? The detective has no personal challenges. He's got enough money laid away. He doesn't really struggle with anything but his own boredom, his life, whatever. But his stories aren't about him. They're not about Poirot. His stories are about the mysteries. And so he has challenges. They're not personal challenges to him. He lives a perfectly happy life of a retired police detective. He has a nonplussed, very fancy fellow. But he has challenges in his life. They're not his challenges. They're challenges he takes upon himself. And so
that's another thing I was going to bring up too, because he says no physical challenges, and I interact with Fizz Chozo a lot, so I'm in the brain space of what he's asking. Okay. There's a lot of like manga and anime in this vein where you'll have like a character gets thrown into another world and they're just like massively overpowerful and they have like no physical challenges in that world whatsoever.
One Punch Man, right? That's another.
There could be a similar, but you also have like a lot of these isekai are in that vein as well. But even though they have no physical challenges, they have tons of like personal, sometimes social relationship challenges and stuff. Maybe they just suck at something in particular that they have to get over. And
that was
you
like
still give your character challenges.
That was like the secret to Dan Jurgens' take on Superman. Was like, all Superman would ever need to do to defeat any foe was get the right angle in there. But a lot of the book, as Jurgens wrote, it was dealing with, I'm dating this reporter who's, maybe she's smarter than me. And
Peter Parker's life was mostly the same way.
But even Jurgens, and this is something I will give to Fizz, I think eventually, even in stories like that, so let me give this concession to Fizz's point. But eventually you're going to have, and this is also happening with Saitama over time. I've started to notice, just even dipping my head once in a while, is that eventually people who read are going to go, but what if he fought someone as strong as him? What if he fought something that was on par with him? And eventually, if the story goes on long enough, the pressure and the expectation will rise to be like, okay, no, seriously, I'm going to have to throw in either the dark mirror or something.
Garo is a great fight.
Or something that's close, somewhat closer, or inches closer to that. And that happened to the original Superman. Over time,
Punch Man to 2-Punch Man.
Yeah.
Because Cosmic Garo does follow that type of trend, where Garo also kind of like breaks his limit in the same way that Saitama was, and they're both ramping up on this like exponential curve. It's just like Garo's isn't as steep and behind, so he keeps catching up, and then Saitama keeps going higher too, and now they're just like punching holes in space on the other side of reality.
Eventually, they hinted that there might be an even bigger, I think, villain.
Well, there's also like the gods,
the god figure. Yeah. So there's even in One Punch Man they're hinting at some of that, right? But with Superman, it's the same thing. Is that eventually they started challenging the character, and I'm okay with that character arc. I'm okay with a character who starts off being like really unstoppable, because that ramps the stakes up when that character finally hits a point where I'm having to face things that are at my level or even beyond it.
Yeah. I think Mixitaplik is probably actually beyond Superman's level.
It depends on which version of each character we're talking about, but on average, he is higher.
Yeah, I'm specifically thinking about the Superman from Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow.
I was just gonna say Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, where he becomes like the final demon boss. Yeah.
I like spoilers. But yeah.
Spoilers for a story from like what?
30,
40, almost 40 years ago.
Almost 40 years ago.
Anyway, if I may, I think we all deep down suspect that Mr. Mixelpixlet is actually Simon Schuster, just inserting himself in there.
I have to say on the whole issue.
You mean Siegel and Schuster? Never mind.
Yes.
Sorry.
Am I getting his name wrong?
Yes.
Is it Joe Schuster?
Simon and Schuster are the
publishers. Yeah. It's Siegel. Siegel and Schuster.
I was going for a single name.
No, it's two. It's two.
Is it Joe Schuster? Am I thinking?
Jerry and Joe.
Jerry Siegel.
Okay, it is Joe.
So regarding the whole problem of Superman's being too powerful, it's always the case, and when John Byrne restarted Superman, he kind of had disagreements even with Marv Wolfman, with the other guy who's relaunching, because they both wanted him to be not able to leap to go like light speed and to be able to see other planets, all those stupid Silver Age, Bronze Age things. But
I prefer the term silly.
Okay. But you remember how many Superman adventures in the
one man
Silver
silly
Age
is another man stupid
ended with like Superman on Earth looking in the distance and seeing like the wrap up on the other planet of the two characters getting married or whatever, and it's like, how does, even if he can see with telescopic the speed of light, it would take years to, this is so frustrating. This is back when Superman could just jump into the sky and rings labeled with years on them appear, and he could travel in time. That's how overpowered he was.
Yeah, he just started being able to make up powers on the fly by manipulating his own molecules.
This is relevant. This is relevant in a second because so Hutch, I'm gonna let you finish, Hutch, but I'm actually
I'm gonna let you finish. I'm gonna go for a few minutes, so why don't you finish? Go ahead.
No,
then you got to let me finish.
you finish first, but I am gonna tie it into our discussion for today, because the Silver Age silliness comes back to Action Comics 1050.
Okay, well, I had thought of writing Superman, like what would I do if given the chance to write Superman. Of course, you don't, when you're trying to break into DC Comics, you don't aim for the big characters, but oddly enough, I know people who trying to break in, they're asked, okay, can you pitch a Batman story? And it's like, nobody pitches a Batman story, but they were asked, and I was like, well, then I should probably have one good Superman and one good Batman story, just in case I was to go to a meeting and somebody asked. And I always thought that, like, what they should do, because it's not just that Superman's strong. And what I was going to say was that Marv Wolfman wanted him to be so weak that he could not handle a crashing plane.
Oh,
that
wow.
they had that Concorde jet arriving, coming in, and it was out of control. And Superman was thinking, I'm not going to be able to save the people in the plane, but at least I can keep it from hurting anybody on the ground. And because he's that depowered in the plane, it's a Concorde, so it's going really fast.
You know what? That was one of the few things I appreciated about Man of Steel.
And but even then, people wrote in, like, even in the first 6-issue Man of Steel miniseries, he lifted the biggest ship on the planet easily. And so it's like, even then, he's really strong. And if you're going to try to have him like take on a robot or something and not be able to knock it out, that's kind of hard. You can't square it with anything. It's like anything showy that Superman can do kind of sets his limits too high. And whenever they say, okay, we've established some real limits, then somebody like Grant Morrison has him lifting the weight of the earth in a test, it's like, oh, come on, or dragging the moon out of orbit with chains, or something like that. So
freaking Grant Morrison.
Okay,
yeah.
so the dragging the moon out of orbit, I liked when they did it, when it was him and several members of the Justice League doing it all together.
But I'm just saying, they
your point's valid. I hear what you're saying.
And I always wanted to like kind of if I did not weaken him, but go with the limitations of the powers. Just because he can think fast and react when moving at super speed, it doesn't mean that all the time his mind is going at 1,000%. I know 100% is, but where he's always working at a level where he can move in microseconds and think things through and all that, because that's just, you can't write a character like that, and that's the problem with the Flash, where once you've established that he can do that, then how do you have him show up at a jewelry store and they have a conversation with, Captain Boomerang, and then Captain Boomerang with his normal human speed throws a boomerang and Flash goes, oh no, he can stop bullets. He can grab bullets. It's like, they even do that on the TV show. He showed up and said, I've got you, bug-eyed bandit. She says, oh yeah, and she turns around and starts typing. And I'm like, typing? She's typing faster than he can cross the 10 feet to grab her? I mean, it's always hard when you deal with a character who's like at a godlike level. And what I wanted to do was just have some of the limits, like the fact that even John Burns said that his X-ray vision doesn't mean he can see perfectly a person. He can see through a wall, but it doesn't just look like the wall isn't there and it's transparent. Right. And he can hear. It's
not clairvoyant.
Yeah, and he's got super hearing, but it's not only he can't hear something across Metropolis instantly. It takes seconds for something to get to him, and by the time he hears gunfire, a gang war is over. I mean, just by the time that the sound crosses Metropolis, if we were being realistic, and all these things where people are having conversations with Superman and he's in the sky and they're on the planet and they're talking like it's instantaneous, it's like, no, it's not when you're using, the speed of sound. If you realistically go by the speed of sound, it takes hours. It takes half a day for the sound in China to reach his ears. So really, and then
by the time you get there, it should be muffled.
Yeah, and he's got to hear everything. And also, ever since Superman appeared, everybody calls out, instead of saying Jesus or, Jesus and Mary save me, they say help Superman. He hears cries for help from people who were crushed in cars hours ago. And when you deal with that, the fact that he hears stuff constantly that it's way too late for him to respond to, you understand why he has a fortress of solitude, that maybe he can get in there and turn on a thing that dampens all the sound, because otherwise he's living in hell all day long.
So I gotta jump in there for a second.
Go ahead.
So I disagree a little. I agree. How do I put this?
You're wrong, Hudson. Here's why.
That's okay.
It's not even that you're. I'm not even going to say that you're wrong. I'm saying that I do have a slight difference of opinion, and here's why. But I also respect that there are readers who do process it like you, and Cartoonicus. I think you and Cartoonicus are a little similar here, without any sense of. And I say sense very deliberately.
Yeah.
Without a sense of realism to a story, there are no stakes. It was just everything. And one of the problems with Grant Morrison that I have found is that he will, because comics at some point have done everything, he uses it as carte blanche to do whatever he wants and then just thumb his nose at anyone who ever kind of raises an objection. And that's frustrating. However, I will say that when you bog down these ultimately fantasy characters with too many rules of realism, it either creates existential horror out of it. And I'm serious.
Yeah.
That's where
that's kind of what I was talking about.
Right.
With the sound. Yeah.
And that's not why I enjoy it. I'm not here to enjoy Superman so that I can like think about the existential horror of what having those abilities would actually be. There's a funny cartoon, by the way. JJ, what's his face, did one about Flash, and it was the same thing about how if you think about how Flash's powers work, he's moving in real time as everything else moves at super time, which means it takes in his brain. He's just walking. So it was just this really horrific thing of just like how a speedster like that might function, and it's like, no, that's not fun. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm with that 100% because like I listen to a lot of podcasts and I never listen at 1x. Right?
Yeah.
I always listen to 2x. And in real life, I've been in situations where I'm like, you are talking too slowly. You hear that? You hear how annoying that is? That's what you sound like to me. So you need
right. So
Flash, one of my favorite ones.
One
is
of the jokes of
Quicksilver.
Flash is listening to everything like
in
that
the X-Men movies.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And everything slows down, and like he has to have his tape running, which the tape would break if it ran at that speed. But he has to have like the tape in his Walkman running at like 100 times the speed, just so it sounds right while he's running around at that speed.
So let me finish the thought here. So the idea is, and again, this is what makes speculative in fantasy fiction, because superheroes are fantasy, science fiction / mostly fantasy. What makes it interesting and what makes it work is the fact that you get that keyword sense, which is an illusion. So the gifted writer is able to, through the process of suspension of disbelief, obviously, but the function on top of the suspension of disbelief is a level of believability, and it's sleight of hand. And it's usually by giving you something that's realistic, and everything else being.
Yeah, I thought so too.
I can't hear you. We're losing you.
You're getting muffled. You sound like you're in a jar.
Dropping.
Give me a second.
Oh, that sounded better.
Yeah.
All right.
Did Brainiac bottle you up already?
No, I might just need to I might need to delete a few hundred tabs.
You have too many tabs open. The computer.
I've been modding Skyrim for the past like 2 weeks. All right, so that should be better.
Go ahead.
So the point that I'm trying to raise is that through the function of suspension of disbelief, but on top of the disbelief is usually and this is kind of like the magician's sleight of hand, right? The magician first shows you something very realistic before he does the supposedly impossible. And so it's like, hey, here's something kind of quasi-realistic. And then once you've your brain latches onto that one little realistic thing, you then swallow the camel of all the unrealistic stuff. So like they are tricks, because ultimately this type of fiction is a magic trick. But the thing is that a talented magician is going to walk you through the tricks so that you go, oh, I almost believed it. Whereas a crap magician is going to go, oh, it's all just stupid. And then make the whole thing just a stupid joke. So in my mind, being good at this type of writing is being a very good sleight of hand magician. Because if you just walk it through like a scientist, takes all the magic out. But if you just treat it like it's all LOL stupid, then, hey, I'm going to show you the trick as I'm doing it, and there's no sleight of hand. Yeah, there's no wonder. So I that's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't talking about killing all wonder, but you never did get to read that story from me, so yeah, I'm summarizing it in a few seconds. You understand? But I mainly wanted to get across that just throwing on some sensible limitations, the fact that he cannot hear, and he explained this once to Jimmy Olsen, that you may have a signal watch, but by the time that little sonic sound got to me, if I was not in Metropolis, you'd be dead. He was because he's got the limitation of not being able to hear sound that hasn't reached him yet.
Yeah, well, they actually discussed that in the Superman series after he gets his hearing blown out by the Silver Banshee in that one issue, where he can't hear somebody killing Lex across town in enough time to do anything about it because he can't hear in that range right now. He's damaged. But he talks about that, like, he said, normally I have to hear people I can't help all day long, and I can't right now, and so it's a good day. Yeah. And then Lex gets stabbed.
Right.
Spoiler.
Okay, so but to bring this back to what we're talking about today, I do want to share with you a couple of moments, and this ties in with exactly what Hutch and Rhys were talking about. Recently, this is Action Comics 1050. But some of those limits got, I guess, some of those limits were ignored. So one thing I would want to bring up is the fact that in the lead up to what we've been reading, which is the Dawn of DC Superman series. This is basically the issue in Action Comics that preceded it and kicked it off. One thing that I want to bring up overall is the fact that there's been some, I think the word I would use is inconsistency in how the writing and story arcs are set up structurally. And it's led to some kind of head scratching and some just goofy stuff. So let me just show you an example of this. So right before Dawn of DC Superman, Lex Luthor kidnapped Manchester Black and used his psychic abilities to put a mind wipe most everyone on the planet, apart from the Justice League and a couple others, erase the knowledge that Superman and Clark Kent were the same because that information had been outed. And he put a psychic bomb at the same time in everyone's head, like on Earth, so that if you discovered Superman's identity, your brain would explode, just pop.
That's horrible.
So this killed Manchester Black. And so Superman is having his conflict with a really cool looking Lex suit of armor. And it was an interesting battle. But
is there somebody in the armor?
Yeah, that's Lex. You can see his head there. It's just a real big, real honking.
Oh, so this was just before he goes to jail then.
Yeah, exactly. This is when he goes to jail because Superman's like, you killed Manchester Black. And Lex is like, you're welcome. I erased everyone. I did you a favor, Superman, because Superman needs to be, anonymous. And so the two of them go at it.
Those cool Guy Fawkes masks.
So here's the thing that this is by Philip Kennedy Johnson, who I think has been one of the weaker Superman writers as of late. He's done several arcs on, at least when I started reading, he's done several story arcs on Superman. Although he stepped back, I think he's been stepping back. Jason Aaron did a recent arc, and then right after that, it was Joshua Williams doing the House of Brainiac. So right before that, get this, Hutch and company. Mm-hmm. Lex casts like dimensional warp. He uses his ability to basically just teleports Superman.
He just becomes Dr. Doom.
He just teleports him to like the other side of like the universe, the galaxy. All right, we're talking a major, just remove him. So in theory, this would be something Superman couldn't necessarily counter, right? He would have to, either have a piece of technology or have an ally to help him out, right? That would be kind of our general understanding of where Superman is at. And in this issue, and I really hated that Johnson did this, he warps him like across the universe, and then Superman just unteleports himself. Just unteleports himself from across the universe. And the explanation that Johnson gives is, my mind and body are stronger than they've ever been. Concepts like weight, distance, temperature, even space-time have largely lost their meaning for me. Oh. In moments, I can cross distances that cease to be distance. And he just touches the armor and disintegrates it.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
So here's the thing that really bugs me.
Okay. So here's the thing: is if this was a situation where like you'd had some lead up, or Superman ended up getting plunged into the sun or something during the course of this fight,
It's supercharged, something.
Yeah, that would make sense. But like, was there any kind of rational motive for?
I think on Warworld, I think he'd gotten some upgrade of abilities with some limitations. There's something going on with that, I think, but nothing that I think fully explains this.
Well, and also,
and by the way, after this issue, Johnson basically, I think, pretends like this didn't happen, because Superman's basically goes back to being, because when you're at this point, as we've all established from our earlier discussion, you should be able to just point at things and solve problems. Okay.
The other thing about this is if he goes to all this thing, Superman is now, a demigod.
Yeah.
He
he always was already
non-timeless. No, this is beyond.
This is different. This is
not demigod. This is almost literal.
This is just a god.
This is I touch it, and I cast wish from.
This isn't even deity.
Right. So here's the thing is, so Superman is in this position where like timeless, spaceless. He's got locality, but he's not tied to locality. This whole pan-dimensional being. But yet he's dismantled Lex's awesome armor, and yet Lex is not oozing liquidly out of this.
No, he only disintegrated. You'll notice he disintegrated only the parts. He's kept the helmet on and his like general like suit.
Yeah, but
but that's the level. That's the level of mastery he has over this.
He's got that,
in this
that
moment.
Control.
Yeah. Okay, so
I still don't understand how they're talking.
Well, again, it's the same super magic at this point.
They're low. Maybe,
I didn't like this.
Maybe they're in low Earth orbit, so there's just enough air around them.
There's satellites. They just ran into a satellite.
So this was a Silver Age silliness moment, and the thing that is that right after they do this, it's almost like they forgot it happened. And I blame this on no. So here's the thing: is that this is not his new status quo. This is Philip Kennedy Johnson, and
good job, Colin.
Here's Colin.
Excellent.
Carrying enough oxygen.
You can always count on Colin.
No, at this point, his lungs are
to
literally
say what
just
we're all
converting
thinking.
sunlight into oxygen, so he's just got an endless reserve inside of him.
So he's constantly using super breath to blow the oxygen across to make the sound transmit.
Anyway,
and that's how Lex can talk. Is he's just talking through Superman's breath.
It's if you want to blame somebody, blame Philip Kennedy Johnson and blame Paul Kaminsky, who's the editor on this. So the two of them let this happen, and then, like I said, right afterwards, essentially pretend like it didn't happen. And we get to Dawn of DC Superman, and Superman basically just is a normal Superman. Joshua Williamson doesn't pretend like Superman has this level of power. He's just kind of normal, kind of, John Byrne levels of power, I think, essentially. Which is what we want anyway. Which is what we wanted anyway.
That's probably okay.
This was like this was kind of like, I don't know, like I said, I don't understand what. So Philip Kennedy Johnson, whatever, has been doing some arcs lately, and he's also been working with characters like those super twins and Metallo. He's been playing with those toys. Meanwhile,
super twins.
There's Ortho. They were in the issue that we read today. It's Ortho and the other one.
Yeah, I know, but there was no actual introduction.
They are
giving me their names.
They are they're orphans from the Warworld event, essentially, and Superman rescued them. They were like I said, they're kind of like war refugees essentially, and Superman and Lois kind of adopt them. So they have superpowers, but they're it's more kids to add to the family.
Okay.
And there was a recent arc where one of the Al Ghuls from an alternate dimension tried to corrupt them and take over the world. And it was like kind of an interdimensional war that lasted a couple of issues. And then after that, Jason Aaron took over for like 3 issues, ignored like everything, and did like a standalone Superman story with Bizarro in it. and then hands the reins immediately afterwards to Joshua Williamson. So the point I'm trying to make is that from Johnson to Jason Aaron to Joshua Williamson has been a bit of a whiplash for the past, dozen issues or so, because it really feels like every time that there's a writer switch, it really feels like almost like an entirely new, the story just feels so different. Because when Jason Aaron
continuity almost
because when Jason Aaron picked it up for those 3 issues, he dealt with Superman, Lois, and Bizarro, and the rest of the Action Comics cast that we were introduced to, we were dealing with today. Not a single one of them make an appearance. It's almost like they don't exist. And when Williamson is writing, as we've kind of laughed about, when Williamson writes, he kind of like finds convenient ways to kind of sideline the rest of the super family and super pets, and basically just says, no, the story's just going to be about Clark. That's who you're here for. So as we go into House...
like there was that one scene where they were all like eating breakfast together, and that's like the most you actually get out of them.
And then the minute there was a crisis, Superman says, no, you go do other things while the story is mine. As I, make an ice wall and cut you out of the story.
That was perfect. I loved it.
Which is great. So what's happening now is Action Comics and Superman are now dovetailing. Williamson, I think, is writing both for this crossover event. And so as we move into Action Comics 1064, which is kind of like part of the 2 comics we read for today, what we're seeing is essentially Williamson taking the reins off of those recent people and kind of doing his own thing, I guess. And so for me as a reader, it's been a bit of whiplash. I liked Jason Aaron's 3 issues, but they felt like standalone. It felt like an episodic, just Jason Aaron had not really read the continuity. He just said, oh, here's a Superman story for 3 issues. And it was fine. And I didn't need the continuity connections, but it was so bizarre that none of them were addressed. And then you have Philip Kennedy Johnson, who's done, like as we've seen, silly stuff. And now Williamson's like, all right, no. We're doing a Brainiac story, and here's me taking the reins. So that's kind of what we're walking into with this issue. So I got this pulled up. So when Williamson takes the reins, he very quickly establishes kind of like, he does it in about a page. Here's that Action Comics cast. He crams as many of them as he can on a panel, because he doesn't really want to spend pages and pages and pages of them doing stuff. He's got Williamson is clearly focusing on Superman, which is nice. But here is a chunk of extended cast.
Okay, I want, before we get into talking about this setup, this whole first Lois Lane taking the day off thing, what did you think about this device?
I hated it.
I'm still confused as to how we went back in time to see Lois as a 16-year-old girl in the 80s.
Yeah.
I love her outfit though.
Yeah, I Sandoval is a really nice artist. It's a different flavor than what we've seen in the Dawn of DC Superman, but Sandoval's a solid artist. He's very enjoyable.
That's the exact style that makes me ask girls out.
It does beg the question. I'd love to hear an answer from everybody, plus the chat can get in on this. What song do you think Lois was listening to?
I don't know, but I do want to know why she's listening to the Pete Ross mix that says no Clarks allowed. That seems weird.
Yeah.
Like out of nowhere. That was my thing. But then like I thought the idea was a little clever with her being able to introduce all the cast as we went along to these people that are going to show up later in the book, right?
I agree with it being effective page management, because like I said, there's this huge cast of characters, and you could have burned 5 or more pages having them all talk, and it was like, no, I'm going to cram 4 of them per panel, and then it's going to be her. It's very cinematic. You could see this being like on a TV episode, and she's walking, and then they do a quick cut to the other cast members, and the economy of it I like.
Well, and even the way that like the conversations that are in place let you know like the backstories of the people as it's going to matter as it goes along. And I
Here's
thought
the
that was
thing.
really
Why is
clever.
everyone she knows in like a couple blocks in
That's
New
the
York
part
City?
That's the part that took it out of me. They're
Yeah.
they're there in the big city. She's going out by herself to have some her time. And
Right.
what does Mama Bear do? She
Run into
runs by
everyone she knows.
every business where she knows her people are at to
Yeah.
check in on them.
Honestly, that's the least problem for me.
And some of the times she's just there to say, "I'm not paying attention to you right now."
When did Lana Lang become Superwoman?
Okay.
Oh
Brief-
no,
brief-
not again!
editors. I'll do this. I'll do this fast. It's an editor's note. It's basically an editor's note. Lana got powers at the tail end of New 52, and she's kind of gone. She's had powers. She's been depowered. She's gotten them back again. She was a superwoman for a time. Like that's just been a thing that's happened in the past little bit.
Okay.
And she has Superman Red's powers from the late 90s, early aughts.
The electric powers?
The electric powers, yes.
Oh, okay.
So
I have to tell you, I read these out of order. I thought you guys said action first, so I read action first, and that was even worse because I'm like, who's this redhead with the costume that's different from Supergirl's from the? And this would have helped a lot, but I read them in the wrong order, so that was entirely on me.
This action is first. This is the action one.
Well, whichever, I read them in the wrong order.
Gotcha.
So
right.
See, and that's my fault because I shared them out of order.
Oops.
Yeah,
I only saw this one.
So
okay, so then we get the villain cast after that. Like I said, Metallo, who Philip Kennedy Johnson did a recent story arc with, where Metallo had a bunch of he could like infect people with a necrotizing technology sort of virus. It ended up that Cyborg Superman was at the root of that problem. Metallo ended up doing something kind of heroic, so he sort of redeemed himself a tad bit. We all knew what's going on with Parasite and Livewire and Change. And so, but it does lead to them meeting in the park.
If you go back, I want to point out a very clever use of the artwork here. In that Lois is wearing this bright yellow and purple suit here. Everyone around her is constantly basically gray, right? And even when you jump to someone else's shot, like if you look at the Supercorp here, Supercorp is usually bright red, blue, white, and blue. And they've deliberately had to dull all the colors because it's like it's showing her compared in her mood compared to the rest of the world around her.
No, that's good. Like I said, the art was really, it said shines pretty strong. Some of the strongest art I've seen, like this spread here. Ooh,
and then it becomes a '90s Disney movie.
I'm sorry, I love this. I love this spread. This is a good
This
spread.
was incredibly well done. I could hear the theme song from the Rescuers Down Under playing while it was
No, this feels like Superman.
I do want to
like just straight up
take a time to point out we had Colin in the chat said she's listening to "I Need a Hero."
Oh, nice.
I think it may be I Feel Good from the version they used in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, though.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah.
See, the cool part, the magic of comics is and this is what makes them better than film, is the fact that you get to imagine what song is being played on that playlist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it were a show, it would be
the weekend.
Yeah, if it were a show, it would be the taste of some guy who's probably out of touch, and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe," you know. But you see, the magic of comics is that you know exactly, intuitively, what song was played there, and Hutch's version is way different than mine. So
and all the Gen Z reader thinks that she's listening to WAP. Yeah. And although that jump that she does with both her knees, where she's I mean, what the heck? She's, as pointed out, she's the mother of a 16-year-old, 18-year-old, something like that, right?
In fairness, she's the mother of a 9-year-old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, who became 17.
Yeah.
Why is that 9-year-old allowed to date? Okay.
Because that 9-year-old was aged through time dilation.
Gosh, it's Amy Rose all over again.
They do that with every kid. I hate that.
It's because they did that specifically because Brian Michael Bendis is a hack. So who ruins everything he touches.
I have like one or two things I'll defend Bendis on. This is not one of them.
Yeah.
So,
and you're wrong about those two things too.
This is a great piece of art.
We should have a court case for Bendis someday. Just like a mock.
I don't know.
trial.
I
That
can't
would be
defend
fun.
him that much.
Bendis needs to go back to the mines.
We'll go find somebody who will try to actually defend him, but we'll have like an actual court case one day.
I don't know what Lois is listening to, but Superman is listening to A Beautiful Day by U2 as this is playing. I mean, look at this.
But it does end in a hilarious moment where he kind of shows up and
first go up a page. Go up a page though. This is the great thing when he's going through the thing. He buzzes the thing,
I liked this.
and he gives the little kid a high five, and he says, "Wow, you're really strong." And then he zips off. I mean, come on. That is the most Superman thing ever.
That should be in a movie.
That melted my freaking heart right there.
So Williamson, this is William. We all know this. Williamson is. I think he got this book because he can write moments like this.
Mm-hmm.
This is his strength. He writes moments like this to make us all go, "Oh, it's the most Superman thing ever." And he knows how to do that extremely well. I unequivocally concede that Williamson is amazing at these types of Superman moments.
Yeah.
We often have these once an issue, I would almost say. Like it's very common. The problem with Williamson tends to come in when he is
baseball played in the mornings to full stadiums?
Yes, no. in Metropolis it
is. Baseball is a late afternoon through evening game.
Okay.
Not in Metropolis, apparently. But it does lead to another cool moment that I like, which is
I'm pretty
what's your problem?
What's going on?
Okay, you remember how I said I never wanted to see Superman in a cowboy hat ever again?
Oh, you don't want to see him in shorts?
I would take that in a second right now.
This is perfectly fine.
What's wrong with this?
I like it. I love it.
This fits the type of dorky character that Clark is.
Yeah.
It's not just that he's a dorky character. It's like dorky middle-aged dad shows up and embarrasses everyone he knows at the park.
Moment.
He's like, "Hey guys, how's it going?
I love this."
But it's great because
I will give kudos to using the Smallville logo.
But
it's great.
It's great because
and the headband.
He doesn't stay that aloof kind of goofball for long. Yeah. He instantly hears something's wrong, and then before we even know it, he's like, "Get them to safety now!" Like that's just boom, And that's this is like I said, another effective page. We get a little bit of humor, but then boom.
And so this is what's great. So Clark shows up as this absolute dork, right?
Yeah.
And you got the kids, the cool kids that are there, and he's just like, "Oh my god," they're face palming, and Lois is just absolutely like enwrapped with her husband, and that's just this is a great moment. I absolutely love everything about this page.
This is how he sells the "I'm not Superman." He dresses like a dork like that, because and nobody looks at that guy and goes, "Hey, I think that's Superman."
And it's because, let's face it, he is in fact a giant dork who just happens to also be Superman.
Like I've always said, so with Superman,
that is the modern that. So I will say that this is something that I need to do a real sit down and thunk. Do a real thunk time, because Golden Age Superman, it's an act. Clark is much more of an act, and so but the more the character changes, the more that Clark becomes a real extension of who he really is, and not just some of it. I think he plays into it. He leans into it. I'm a bit of a dork, so I'm going to lean into that to make it more of a disguise.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this is kind of an extension of who he is.
That has a lot to do with the expectation of the reader, not like the reader's expectations, but the writer's expectation of who's reading it. Because also over time, quickly, comics had become just more and more of a thing for dorks, like less general audiences, and it's just like, you're a specialist if you like comics.
Yeah, I think the other part of it though is I feel this is a very accurate portrayal of a real like bipartite aspect about being a man, right? Because like I don't care how cool you are as a middle-aged dad, the minute you have kids, you're already kind of a dork, right? And if you're a good husband, your wife looks up to you like you're Superman because you're a dork, because you go out and do those things. And
if
it's like
Arthur Fonzarelli ever had kids, his kid would think that he was a dork.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
But wait! He did have a kid. He thought it was the coolest thing in the world.
You mean that kid that there was like
Right,
that he was the stepdad to in the last seasons?
Yeah,
it's not the same thing. I'm just saying if he was ever a dad to a kid, that. Yeah, because he came into that kid's life, and that kid is like, "Wow, you're cool." But if he was ever like somebody's, go ahead.
I was going to say there's also a difference between like a 10-year-old and a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
But
isn't it kind of weird at this point that Jimmy Olsen doesn't know? But I mean, there's like 40 people who know that he's Superman now.
Well, not anymore, because because of the psychic bomb. It's been
I'm just saying even now there's like 40 people in his circle who know that he's Superman, but Jimmy Olsen's not one of them.
Yeah. You would think that when Jimmy's over to the Kent house for Thanksgiving dinner, and Kent and you've got Kent's, like Clark's, adopted half brother Connor is here, and his son John is here, and his two little twins that he adopted are over there, and they're foreign exchange student who just happens to look like the Chinese Superman.
Right. None of them make an effort to change how they look.
The rationale behind that is that, again, the psychic spell there is because, again, going off of Manchester's massive psychic potential and Lex's application of it, is that the psychic bubble that engulfed the whole planet and warped people's brains who didn't have psychic protection was the fact that it takes your current level of knowledge and then kind of hallucinates you into rationalizing things that you wouldn't normally rationalize.
So Colin's got the thing. Jimmy Olsen says, "This is fine. These are normal people."
Yeah.
Do you think Jimmy Olsen sits down to Thanksgiving and his head explodes? It's like, wait a second, boom!
Okay. So there was an actual storyline, not with Jimmy, but with another character where they were kind of having to like deal with this. Like, so it has come up.
I also feel like people like think way too heavily about this. Because the only reason anybody who's a reader should suspect that Clark and Superman are the same person is because they're in the audience and they have like this God's eye view of the story that's going on. Yeah. But like in real life, right? There are so many people who look so similar, and you wouldn't even have the idea that Superman would have a secret identity, that he would just be Superman. You wouldn't be looking for somebody. It'd be a joke.
He's just Superman all the time. He's just Superman all the time. Yeah. He just disappears to his hideout and doesn't have a necessarily.
Jimmy Olsen has taken a picture of Superman and Clark standing next to each other. He's the one who took the picture.
That's brought up again. The psychic spell basically has, every time he looks at that picture, his brain reinterprets the information of what he's seeing. Basically,
like probably the only person that you'd ever guess who should, over a long period of time, have ever figured out who Clark is Lois.
Yeah.
Because she's like this ace journalist. But it would still take a long time because she wouldn't be looking for a person to be Superman. It'd have to be like these clues would be falling in place over this the time that they know each other.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that they did when they were engaged in Jurgen's run back in the day, was Clark like tells her, and she's really insulted that she didn't figure it out. And he's just like,
it's like, would it make sense for you to figure it out?
Moving on.
You gotta keep this moving. Robots. Brainiac attacks.
It's already 8:30, and we have robots and Lobos falling from the sky.
Exactly.
Cats and dogs living together. It's
total anarchy.
Total anarchy.
Robots and Lobos are both things with OBO in the middle.
Oh my god.
Lobos and Robos.
Robots and Lobos, yeah.
So my first thought on this shot is, wow, this is really nicely done. And my second one was, wait a minute, is Greg Land tracing again?
No, this is Sandoval, and as far as I know, I've not heard of him being a lot of artists use some level of tracing, but the thing with Greg Land is how obvious he would trace from like supermodels and porn.
Well,
So
it's
in this
mainly
case,
this guy with the gun falling upside down here that just seems so out of place.
all I know is that I like Sandoval as an artist. I think he's a good pick. These spreads are pretty awesome. Very cinematic. Probably don't need quite as many of them because, like I said, it's comics. Don't make everything a movie screen. But I don't know. They're pretty, pretty pictures.
I think it was a good use of 2-page spreads in this particular issue, specifically because it was setting up so much of the story. So it's not going to be done in 22 pages. You're not expecting it to be done in 22 pages, but it is setting the stakes for what.
And I would be so much more okay with this if Bizarro hadn't recently just trashed Metropolis that in a way that needed serious repair. And if right before that, Philip Kennedy Johnson hadn't done an interdimensional attack from Shadow Sister Al Ghul that also wrecked Metropolis beyond repair. And it was like, all right, come on.
Fortunately,
I didn't
see any of that. So I'm not affected at all.
And that's okay. I'm just saying they need better editing because, like I said, this whiplash I'm getting. Anyway, I am liking this.
Metropolis must have the same insurance company that the Golden Gate Bridge does in Hollywood.
No, superhero stories constantly have this. I think it was the scale of it that got me. And it was the scale of it back to back to back. Because it's like the whole city and it's like 3 separate things. And I'm like, back in Dan Jurgens' day, right? I don't think he would trash all of Metropolis every 2 issues. You know what I mean? Like Doomsday was a big event and then things calmed down for a little bit. And then when you fought a villain, it was like in a back alley and maybe one building got trashed. Like they kept the scale of it more manageable. And lately with Superman, it's been whiplash because it's like every 2 seconds.
Metropolis should just be
why
like
bother rebuilding?
At this point.
Yeah. So then we get some cool moments, but look who's behind it all.
It's Brainiac. And one of the things is interesting. It starts off with this in the thing, Brainiac saying that I finally learned everything there is to know, and yet I lack something.
Yeah.
We're
talking about the superheroes who, it's too strong, and it's like Brainiac is too powerful. He's too powerful to be interesting to me. I understand he has to be powerful in order to take out Superman.
We're about to have a fight. I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
I have a feeling we're going to separate everybody into 2 categories here. That is those who do appreciate and those who don't appreciate. Villains.
Keep going, I'm just playing with you. What keep going. What are you saying about what are you saying about my boy?
I'm just saying. Oh, go ahead. You go ahead. I think I made my point.
Who are designed to be able to come back infinitely. I think there are going to be 2 people who love that and people who hate that.
Go ahead, Hutch. What else were you going to say about him?
I just think that he is too god level. That it's like he's got an impenetrable force field and he's super smart and he knows everything, and it's almost to the point of what does he actually want or need, which this kind of feeds into that, but it's like, how is he an ongoing character? Because every time he shows up, he's either trying to shrink Metropolis or he's kind of like one of those ultimate epic villains, which is kind of funny. He's never been used in the movies, but it's he's almost a what do you call him? The Infinity Gauntlet guy. He's Thanos. He's almost a Thanos level villain. It's like to use him for anything less than, I'm going to end everything. I'm going to end all of existence. If he doesn't do that, it's like, well, what can you do with him?
So I think my favorite versions of Brainiac are when he's scaled down a little bit more. The animated shows version struck a real good balance. He was very powerful, but he was on a quest to basically his program was to collect all knowledge and then basically erase the original copies because he didn't need it.
Right.
And so until and that's kind of a goal that would take him all eternity if you think about it. And so that kind of dialed it back a little bit. He was always archiving, essentially. They made him an ultimate archivist. And so and he was on this never-ending quest to just archive everything and then, like I said, delete the original carbon copy. And I think that makes it a little easier to kind of grasp. I don't know. I like Brainiac's ability to just shrug off Superman a lot. It gives, I think, an interesting angle. Superman can't immediately, unless the writer's being stupid, just automatically punch his way through it. I like that Superman often needs to be more clever about it. I like the rock meeting the unstoppable object meeting the immovable object meeting the unstoppable force a little bit. That's kind of neat. I like the two of them kind of embody those things. If you go with the earlier versions of Superman where he wasn't an egghead, it's a nice little balance between brain versus brawn. So I don't know. But I do agree that if you don't write Brainiac well, I think he does become less interesting because of the problems you bring up. So I think those are fair criticisms when he's not being utilized well.
I like Brainiac 5.
I'm not. I actually like Brainiac. I'm just saying, he's kind of the way he is portrayed here. The way he's been portrayed for a long time, he's too powerful, and that's all. That's all I'm saying. I think he could be more interesting if he was scaled back. That's what makes him more interesting.
One of the more recent incarnations of him, when they made him a Kaluan again, he just ends up getting into a fisticuffs with Superman in a swamp somewhere. Like they did scale it down to the point where they were just punching each other in like New Orleans or something.
One of the things about this story that I've liked so far is, first of all, the things that go on in the story, and I'm sure we'll talk about them here later, but they indicate that like Brainiac's claim to have learned everything is not true. And so that makes an interesting little braggadocio aspect. How's that going to play out? And the second thing is we're developing a motivation beyond just learning stuff.
I'm on the fence on this, guys, though, because I'm afraid that the thing that he needs to do, because this is Williamson, right? And Williamson likes to do the heartstring stories. I'm sitting there going, "Oh man, it's going to be like I'm lonely," and the reason why, because it was in the annual, and he's like, "I will not be alone anymore," and I'm like, "Oh, well,
no, that's absolutely guaranteed. 100% going to happen." There's been all kinds of imagery that was taken from this Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, he's going to do a Bride.
You've got all
girlfriend
stuff. Yeah,
Bride of Brainiac.
Yeah, and he raised Lena Luthor, so he used to have a daughter who was with him for a decade and a half or whatever.
Yeah, and that wasn't this version. That's a future version of Brainiac.
Yes, but
he doesn't have. So this Brainiac knows it happened, but he doesn't actually have the memory of it himself, and so he knows that such a thing can exist, but he doesn't actually have it. And so the other thing that's in there, it's in the works with their guaranteed, is the story is called The House of Brainiac.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That's what it's called. So
which tells you that Williamson watched that new Ant-Man movie. Because you get like in the House of Infinite Kangs.
I didn't watch the new.
I haven't seen it either, but I know it. I know what you're talking
about.
What
I'm talking about, right? Yeah.
The stadium full of Kangs. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's the Council of Reeds. It's the
And I don't even know who Kang is, but I've heard of that.
How many of us have even touched a Marvel movie in like 5 years?
I touched one. So
I was dragged to Love and Thunder, and I
kicking and screaming
every moment of
also,
it.
I do want to point out that the Zarnians have got these teleport guns that put everything out in bottles. Well, why do they gotta look exactly like sports drink bottles?
I know.
What did you think? I was just about to ask. What did you think of the bottle guns?
It took me a second actually quite a while to realize. Oh, I get it. Seating on bottle.
See, it makes me think of the old Super Friends episode from like the first season where there was a guy who miniaturized people and put them in bottles. Like Green Arrow was in that one. Haven't seen it yet. I bet it's right here in front of me on this box set that I haven't watched yet. But anyway, yeah.
I think it was an interesting twist. It wasn't just because in modern comics with the fancy coloring effects we have, this could have just been a flash of light, which would have been flashy, but it would have been, in my opinion, it would have been more boring. And this was based with the visual. And again, in my mind, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a physical bottle. That's just maybe the teleportation energy, there's different ways you could read that. But I do kind of like the fact that because Brainiac is a bottler, that's kind of his theme.
Yeah.
He gave the technology.
It was fun to look at, but I rolled my eyes real hard at it, especially because the bottles have screw-off caps. And I'm just like,
I
do
recognize
they?
that
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
you need something because, like, here's the thing. If you remember from our video game comic stream, Sonic the Hedgehog did this about 15 years ago, where Robotnik was teleporting people with an energy blast to his egg pods. However, in that, the whole thing was played out as if he was disintegrating everybody, and this was this absolute horror story going on, and we don't find out until just at the last minute. Oh, they're all okay, thank goodness. Pretty sure that's not what you want in this case. Their goal is to let you know he is kidnapping everybody. So you got to have some visual to tell that they're not just being incinerated in a flash of light.
Yeah, no, and it does visually get all that across. It just was one of those things where it's like, hey, kids, did you notice you're reading a comic? Yes, Joshua, I know I'm reading a comic, but thank you. Thanks for reminding me.
I wish you hadn't pointed out the cap with the little connecting thing to the base. It's like now that I see that, it's like, dang, that is awfully.
So if you're,
I'm sorry I wrecked your day there, Hutch.
if you remove just that little tab part, I think
I don't think it would look like a bottle anymore.
And that's the problem, is that the whole point was to make so that you're in a weird. Actually, it would still look kind of bodily. I think it would work. I think that tab is what makes it look like, oh, you got that from Walmart.
Yeah, they're just trying to make it modern, right? If this was a historic fantasy setting, it would still be weird for somebody to form a bottle with a cork already in it or something like that.
Maybe this is what you were saying about the Greg Land tracing thing. Maybe somebody said, I need to do a bottle. Picture of a bottle. Okay, I'll trace this in there. And
this guy's looking around his desk like, I need some sort of visual aid to show what's going on here. I don't even wait a second. I got a big mouth container right here.
This is also an interesting moment. I liked the reveal, but I didn't like how I think they sped too fast through it. The reveal is that, and this is from Donna DC Superman that we've all read, right? There's that hologram that Clark doesn't like. He's like, this is in very bad taste. It kind of looks like Jor-El. And Mercy says, oh, well, Lex put this in for you as a nod to you. And then it kind of pops up. And then they go, hey, Lex, it's that thing you put in. And Lex goes, I never installed that. and the reveal is that this is Brainiac sneaking his way into things. I like that reveal, but I felt like they did it so fast I wasn't able to savor its betrayal. That really makes you
go, I would have liked there had been more conversation between the LL01 AI and Luther with more than just a page.
Yeah,
they skipped over
a lot going on. There's a lot going
Luther, on. All Luther has to do is say, "I didn't do this," and then it's like, "Oh, I got you, guy."
Yeah, it's a good reveal, and it was planted. It would have been
nice for Luther to be like, "No, I demand you tell me who you really are, or how you got here."
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, exactly. That's how they should have done it. But it was in good. Williamson planted.
Call me.
Yeah. Williamson planted a good seed, though. Because this was from that was like Donna DC. That was like number 1, right? It was like 12 issues ago.
I think it was 3, but yeah.
Is it 3? I thought it was the first one.
Maybe I could be wrong. I've been wrong before.
I thought it was the first one. I've got it in front of me. I'm gonna double check. So, but it was a really cool reveal. I really liked the reveal. I just did not like how fast. Yeah, it's issue 1.
Okay.
So that's like I said, 12 issues ago. And that's a good payoff. Williamson, good payoff, but you kind of missed the full impact there by just having it sort of like you just skim past it.
No, he's like, listen, I've got a lot of story to tell, and I need to get through it.
Yeah. That's exactly.
And they do go back and they talk about. I think it's in the next issue where they talk about where Lex and mentions that I had this suspicion when we were sharing brain space some time back ago. So there is more conversation between them. It just would have been nice to have that some of that front loading the with the conversion of the hologram guy.
So there's some cool reveals. There's some neat things, but most of Superman's allies get bottled, and the enemies as well. Brainiac's not just after his allies.
To point out one thing on here before we move on.
Yep.
I cannot stand. I absolutely hate this Supergirl costume.
Same. I was going to point out the same thing.
It's not terrible as a costume, but it doesn't really
for her.
It's bad, not Supergirl at all. It's like if Brian I can't remember his name even. The guy who's director of the
Singer, Brian Singer.
Brian Singer designed a Supergirl costume or hired the guy that designed the Supergirl costume. It's just the X-Men costume. That's all it is. It's Brian Singer's X-Men.
Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure it's more like that? I feel like it's a little more like Carol Danvers' Captain Marvel, though. It's Kelly Sue DeConnick's run on that. They're doing that retro thing.
I mean, isn't the deal that
costume?
Those are the same costume.
Okay. I feel like with the coloring and the more retro feel, I think it's more that one.
Well, there's nothing retro about the feel. So
that's just because
the
Superman
color
and Captain Marvel just have the same colors. That's the only reason. You know,
they're doing a little Flash Gordon-y thing, I think, with the collar. They're trying to nod that
because
that was the Captain Marvel.
They've got the all along up and down the shoulders and the legs. They've got that stitched puffy leather look with it. It's just. Yeah, I just can't stand it.
So Fizz brings up an interesting point from chat. He said the recent animated show that when they introduced her, they just put her in Android 18's outfit from Dragon Ball.
Everything about that version of Supergirl. I had a theory about that show from the very beginning when I saw their designs for Superman and Lois. That it's like they don't want to write Superman. They want to write a Dragon Ball fan fiction with Gohan and Videl. And then the more and more that comes out, the more and more that hypothesis is just proven correctly, especially dropping her in 18's outfit.
And I have to agree that it's pretty much that outfit, like down to a T. It's got the vest, the shirt, the pants. Does she even have the gloves?
It's basically the same thing. Even the little logo on her jacket is in the same place that the Red Ribbon logo was on 18's jacket.
That's
like rough. It is just exactly the same, and they basically gave her Raditz's and Vegeta's personality from when they first showed up, as like these conquering Kryptonian things.
Right. She's a.
And I hate it. I hate everything about the show.
I don't see that costume here anywhere.
Mel, can you pull that up?
Here, let me get from
the I've got
with Superman.
Yeah, I've got the comic pulled up. So to keep things moving, because we have another issue to get through. The basic gist of the issue is that Brainiac attacks. He kidnaps most of Superman's extended family and kidnaps a bunch of the rogues as well, with his army of Robos and Lobos, as Hutch said. And then he leaves. He's out of there. And Brainiac has got this plan that we've kind of guessed at, that he's not just interested in knowledge anymore. He wants to create something, and we think he wants to make some sort of companion for himself because he's lonely. He's so lonely.
He could die.
I'm so lonely.
I'm a lonely baby.
We're doing Team America. I don't know.
Yeah.
You're doing Elvis.
Yeah.
I've never seen Team America.
Oh,
I'm so lonely. I could die.
Yeah, here you go. I got it for you. This is what she looks like.
What? That's not a costume. That's
literally just Android 18.
It's just a vest with a logo on it.
Well, and then they give her this stupid like mech thing. Where is it?
It's like,
everyone has to wear like a mech suit in this show.
It's like it's just an outfit. Like I went on a date with a girl in that exact outfit like 20 years ago. Well,
yeah, it's just not loading
it's
anymore.
More. That's not correct. It's more like 24 years ago.
She just looks like 18.
Yeah. Okay.
Is this like the preview or something? I notice it's only 2 minutes long. Must be. Okay.
All right. So anything else to talk about other than I think there's more.
Yes. I do want to talk about.
Oh, it was a clip that somebody put up on Twitter. That's what I got it from.
What was that, Cartonicus?
I'm looking for it here. How on page? Oh, darn! I don't have the page numbers.
So there's one more thing. If you want to share there's one more thing we should talk about, which is the introduction of our Lobo villain.
Yeah.
Lobos and Robos. This is a Zarnian general of legend.
Yeah.
And he's going to be a big. He's at least set up to be a big threat, because he can shrug off a heat ray blast and mostly say, "Dang, I like the best."
Well, even more the fact that he said that Lobo is like some geekoid.
Yeah, he's like, oh.
It's like, oh boy.
So, okay, now with this whole thing, we talked about it a little bit when we went over the annual, but I've been sitting with this for a little while. I've been thinking this through. I kind of like the Zarnian mercenaries, and also kind of hate Zarnian mercenaries.
Okay.
Do you hate that they're stealing Lobo's shtick and making it?
Yeah, it's like Lobo. If the Zarnians are all like these, metalheads from a planet full of metalheads.
Okay, actually, I don't think that's it. From issue 2, I don't think that's the setup. I think the setup is that there's one city of metalheads, and the rest, and they were kind of outcasts and rogues, and that's why that's how they justify the fact that most of the Zarnians are the peace hippies.
Right.
Lobo's different, but there's this one city from like their past where like the real metalheads hung out, and that's the one that Brainiac took.
Yeah. Well, in my reading,
out there.
in my reading, and there may have been a line where I missed it. Okay. But from what I had picked up from reading it was that there were the baddest of the bad, and this general guy was the baddest of the bad, and his people were the baddest of the bad. And then, but that's still in comparison to other similar whatevers. And so that's like, so maybe there's a line I missed or something. We'll have to check that out here.
But then that makes Lobo a wannabe who liked these guys and took their whole outfit as
it's
his.
Like when Chewbacca turns out to be the little guy.
I'm almost okay with that. That actually that's to me that's an interesting character development for the character. He's a little bit of a poser, but he's a poser who can actually back up his posing. I don't know that's actually I'm okay with that. That doesn't bug me. Maybe I'm not too much. Maybe I'm.
And with one thing that Lobo specifically mentions is that the time gap between the general and his city and when Lobo came on the scene is centuries. So,
are they frozen in the bottle that they don't age, or
their species could have regressed into like Care Bears in between that time?
Right. Well,
Brainiac Tech. I'm okay.
Time's frozen for them, but the fact that they don't. I mean, they're like Superman, so they wouldn't necessarily age beyond peak physical conditioning. So,
and again, Brainiac Tech, because it's Brainiac, I'm okay with suspending some disbelief there because I'm pretty sure that in those bottles he can run time however he wants. He can make it mostly dilate so that almost no time is passing. He could probably super speed it if he wants to evolve somebody.
Is that what happened to Supergirl?
I'm assuming he can do whatever he wants in those bottle cities.
He can make day and night run at the exact same time in the same place.
Cats and dogs living together, total anarchy.
But I actually watched the Krypton TV show that in the first season was awful, but the second season they brought in Lobo and Brainiac and Doomsday. And Lobo, they did a good job. And Brainiac, they did a good job. But one of the things that they did when they introduced that Lobo was going to bottle up the city was that everybody would be like frozen and conscious of it and in pain forever. And I'm like, that is far less fun than the whole concept of the bottle city. What's that? Sorry.
I said that's pretty metal.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes it much less fun to have a bottle city of Kryptonians in your fortress, though. Knowing that they're in pain forever.
Superman turned that setting off. he found
he lets time run in there.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
I could put time in a bottle.
Yeah. So we get introduced to that general, and then that's mostly this issue.
So Fizz says that the Krypton TV series was just Game of Thrones in space.
Yeah.
Fun.
Is there anything we need to take from this issue before we move on to the next one, so we can keep?
I don't think so. I think the one thing that's interesting is that the only Kryptonian that doesn't get snatched up is somehow Superman. Which that seems like it works out pretty well. So,
well, he's about to get captured, and then Lex leaps in front and says, "No."
There's a confusing panel from above when a whole bunch of people get teleported and Superman yells Lois as if she just got taken. But then at the end, we clearly see that she's still there with him.
I guess I missed that.
It's the one in which he looks like Dick Van Dyke.
Okay, like you could just.
Wait, what?
That's not helpful.
If these things had page numbers on them.
Wait, are you did? Okay,
Supergirl.
All right, no. Okay, so no, you have to reread that sequence. What happens is that there is I think she's about to get bottled, and the twins leap in front. They get bottled instead.
But the very last thing that happens is someone yelling Superman and him yelling Lois.
Yeah, he hears Lois because the twins yell Lois, and then he's hearing somewhere else. So they're not on site when he's not on site.
So he don't. Yeah. Okay. So So all right. So he doesn't know. He's afraid for a second, and then he runs into her, and she's like, "Go kick his ass." Wait, actually, I do have to share. There is one last image. I do have to share the House of Kang, because I think Hutch. What did you think of the gallery of Brainiac?
At the end, the very last.
It's like a who's who of Brainiac over time.
Yeah. Up on the right. Yeah. There's a couple shots of the what do you call it? The George Perez revamp from the 80s with the robot face and the little dome head with the what do you call them? Looks like hexagons, Yeah. Yeah. And there's like two of those.
The Milton Fine version.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've got the 3-dot version from the cartoon, but mostly you've got the lights all over the head type,
Beardiac,
and then you've got Cthulhu.
Yeah, Cthulhu.
When was there ever a Cthulhu Brainiac?
I think after because there's only so many, but he wanted to imply there's like hundreds of them. So after a point, you just like, okay, well,
and so I don't know if this has been established or whatever, but I mean, are these the Brainiacs of all dimensions that they're going for here, or is this?
Oh,
that I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't help thinking: does the number of dots on his head determine the number of that Brainiac?
I don't know.
I don't know.
The one, as you said, the Milton Fine one from that Marv Wolfman came up with, where he's just a human who hears Brainiac in his head and gradually alters himself into Brainiac, and then that is and is not in canon, and so there he is in the right front.
Yep.
And there's I don't know what to make of it. It's kind of the whole multiverse thing that we're all getting sick of. That there's just infinite versions to come up with.
Here's the other thing. I'm clearly seeing many of these have been copy and pasted multiple times.
Multiple
Cthulhus.
Yeah, the two Cthulhus are just
multiple Kangs. This guy with the red head up here shows up at least 3 times.
Yeah. The red head is that's the George Perez one,
the Robo one. So we don't know yet how we're supposed to interpret this, but part of me thinks it's visually I like it because it's a nice little. We get these often with heroes. We get to see every version of a hero, if for some reason, and this was like a nice little throwback to here's a gallery of this villain and all the different incarnations he's had. So just even from a meta fictional standpoint. We'll see where it goes in the story, but it's cool because if you've been a long time reader, like you just did there, Hutch, you were able to point out, that's this version from this, author and so like it's neat that you can do that. We'll see if it pays off.
Yeah. The thing with Brainiac is he could, I mean, although there's no reason for him to have all these variations, he can replicate himself. You destroy a body and he's just, I just made another body, even if it's partly bio based, because he can grow in the same, we can grow meat. He can grow meat if we can grow meat. So, he's got the ability to make the cyborg, he can regrow a cyborg body because he can regrow the cells just as he can regrow the mechanics. So, it's possible that you could still have this all be not multiverse, but just somehow these are just all variations. Like he's trying to come up with friends, but they're all just him in a different shape. And he actually wants somebody else who's not him to be, so he's not alone, because your copies of yourself is not interesting. You want somebody who thinks differently that you can interact with. Then you don't feel alone. So maybe that's kind of saying something there. All he's got is Brainiacs, and that's not fun. I don't know.
He's talking to himself the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's in theory.
All right.
Yeah. I would like to see. I've said over and over again for the whole time we've been doing this, I would love to see, instead of all the stories are true, even the 10 different origins, they're all true. It's like, no, give me an origin. I need to know what this guy's backstory is. And so I'm a guy who actually liked that the cartoon series said that he's from Krypton. But I would have liked to have had something like, yes, he's on Krypton, but he's Kaluan, like they traded with Kalu or something. And, anyway,
Sure,
yeah. that's, and I like the cartoon series, but I really wish that he was bottling up cities, because collecting information and putting them in orbs is not as interesting. Anyway, that's, like you said, I like what the cartoon series did for the most part. I like this version. I like bits of that version. I like bits of this version.
Sure.
Yeah. I actually, when I was thinking, I've had dreams of going to Hollywood and being a writer. That's, I'm 54 now. That's not going to happen. But I had thought,
why not? No, don't let those dreams be memes. Keep those alive.
I'm just saying, I thought it would be cool to have a planet Krypton that explained that they used to trade with Kalu, that for all their advanced technology, what they did not have was interstellar trading. I don't like this version that they've come up with where they used to have an empire, because if they ever left Krypton, wouldn't they find out, hey, we can be super powered people on another planet, and they'd all leave Krypton and go to a yellow sun planet.
Well, that's the thing. Didn't Jor-El already know
find
that
a way
anyway?
If they're an empire, they'd find a way to escape Krypton's destruction somehow.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah, in general, the whole empire thing undermines the fall of Krypton.
Right. But I thought it would be interesting if they traded with Kalu, and Kalu does have interstellar, but it's some sort of thing that they can't replicate. It's like other people have interstellar engines.
How about it's something you have to bottle yourself up to do it?
Yeah,
the ships are gonna be, because that would be a cool thing, because the Kaluans could be like, hey, why make a massive starships where you could just shrink everything down and do it micro? You save so many resources that way.
But I always thought it would be cool if the reason that Jor-El cannot convince anybody is that every time they run it through their computer, which is Brainiac, he's like, no, it's not going to explode. And they're like, well, okay, we asked the computer, and he's trying to. He does the stuff in his head, and they run it through the computer. It's like, no, it's not going to explode. And the reason is Brainiac is planning to leave, and he doesn't care about saving everybody else.
Yeah,
he's making his own plans too.
He gets his bottle, and that's all he needs. Yeah,
right. So that when they finally build an arc, he's like, okay, I'll be taking that. And they're like, I will fulfill the request to take some Kryptonians. I'll take the ones right here. and then he first bottles up the city, because he was proposing, I could shrink everybody. Can't make them large again, but I could shrink everybody. And Jor-El doesn't want to do that. You could. There's cool ways to make a story that works with the Krypton backstory. But anyway, I'm just saying, I wish I knew what Brainiac's true story is. But
the problem is
everything is alive right now.
Yeah, the problem is that they're doing their they're trying to have all their cake and eat it too right now. That's the current approach. So speaking of which,
thinking about bottling up things,
okay,
let's check out the next issue.
Yeah. All right, so then because it's getting late for me.
It is getting late.
But
10 p.m.
So we can let's briefly cover it. So the next issue is basically a buddy cop story, I would say.
And it starts at Warriors Bar in Coast City, which, of course, if you don't know, was the bar that Guy Gardner started when he was no longer a Green Lantern.
He didn't start it. He got it from his buddy Buck Wargo, who said, here's your... And it wasn't in Coast City, but anyway.
Right.
Yeah. Because there was no Coast
franchise. This particular franchise is in Coast City. Right. Now,
yes,
I want
franchised it.
Scroll up. I want to talk about the building though, because
the Half Lantern.
Yeah, the Half Lantern building up at the very first page.
Oh, here, okay,
right. So it's Warriors. It's got the W on there, but the whole building is shaped like the Golden Age Green Lantern, or something affixed to that. What do you guys think about that as a shape of a building? Does that just seem stupid to anybody else?
I'm fine with it. In a world of superheroes,
booky.
In a world of superheroes, people would be franchising the hell out of this.
No, I don't disagree with the franchise aspect of it. It's just like from an architectural perspective, that's just like
Bass Pro
a lot
Shop.
of wasted space.
We have Bass Pro Shops. Like, this is nothing that we don't do now.
But even the Brown Derby was just a big dome-shaped thing, but it had, it worked. It's like, where are you going to seat people in this? Because
it's a Mario Brothers house.
Yeah.
Made out of pipes.
If it's big enough, you just build a square inside of it, and the circle's just the outside architecture. It's not like the whole thing has to be a sphere.
The Critical Blast has shown up. He says if the Legion can make a clubhouse out of a nose-shaped rocket ship. All right.
Nose-dive rocket ship, yeah.
I'm okay with it. I understand. If it's one of those things, it's a taste thing.
Yeah.
So I do want to point out also the patrons at the bar who have got all different kinds of, DC superhero like clothing that are just like, that's out there. This dude in the Warriors Western style shirt. I kind of want that. I'm gonna be completely honest. That looks kind of legit.
Which one? The Warriors Western style.
Yeah, I thought that was the Warrior, but maybe it's Wonder Woman. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, it looks like Wonder Woman.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, he's a lasso enthusiast.
Well, it is a Western style shirt, so
yeah.
Wait a minute, are we now gonna put Wonder Woman in a cowboy hat?
Already did. That's Justice Riders.
Yeah, what you do with your free time is not my business. Okay, moving on.
So Superman shows up and is like, "We're gonna have words."
Yeah.
And
why is he even seeking out Warriors Bar? There's a million bars, and he just wants to go to a bar. Why is he there?
Lobo?
Yeah, it's not even Guy Gardner. I mean, that's not even Guy Gardner's prime location. That's just
if
one of the franchise.
Called Warriors, I wouldn't. I don't know. I'm okay with Lobo being like, that place is called Warriors. I bet you they've got a scrap.
Yeah, that's true.
Even though it's a cosplay bar, so it's the literal opposite of that.
There should be a sign somewhere. There's no sign saying Warriors Bar. Granted, it's a big lantern, but even then you need a sign.
Well, it does have the W on the front doors.
It just looks like a big smear. I don't know. I didn't.
I would argue. I am with Hutch here. I would argue that because he got let go of by the Farm and Graft, he would be closer to Metropolis, so he should be at like Bibbo's or something.
Yeah,
that's probably where he should be. Because if he escaped from Farm and Graft, he escaped from a Metropolis. Him being Coast City is a little like okay.
Well, yeah, but if
he jumps on that motorcycle and he's in another galaxy. And
he doesn't have a motorcycle. Yeah, the motorcycle's gone. Right.
They took his cycle. He explains that those guys took his cycle, and there's some whole thing in Green Lantern where what is the United Planets? What is that? What is the United Planets in the 21st century? I mean, that's the name in the 30th century, right?
Well, they have they mention in one of the editorial notes in this comic that there's some sort of a thing going on over in the Green Lantern books,
right?
Yeah.
And that the United Planets is like a representation of a transgalactic something or other that the Lanterns largely are part of. And because the Lanterns are part of it, there is an embargo against Earth
because Earth has COVID.
Because Earth has COVID. Sure, why not?
Makes as much sense as I'm sure whatever reason they came up with.
Yeah. So that's the tie-in to like the Earth's partly not part of the United Planets, and that's something going on out in space that the Lanterns are involved in that don't directly have anything to do with Superman.
So Superman and Lobo get into a scrap, and Superman is not playing, and Lobo picks up on this. Lobo kind of picks up, oh, you're fighting more seriously than normal. What's up? What crawled up your butt? And,
you've lit my face on fire. That's fun. I also point out when his face grows back, he still has the same mustache. That's what?
Apparently, it never burned.
That's not how burning works.
His hair doesn't burn. Yeah,
his hair doesn't burn.
But so then we cut. So we cut from that to the Zarnians and the Robos and Lobos and our Bottle City inhabitants. And of course, Livewire is threatening to. She's threatening to sue Brainiac. So that's clearly going to work.
And the whole thing is just like a great big bar. They're just hanging out. And we see there's all sorts of different stuff going on where people are threatening Brainiac, and Brainiac is performing experiments to learn more about his people, the people he's kidnapped.
Yep.
Which is one of those things where, like, if he already knew everything, there'd be no need for experiments.
Right.
He's saying these will help me, or get out Metallo because he's got a unique metal frame that can be useful, and so he's learning all this sort of stuff for whatever reason he's got.
He's building a robo
wife. I do think that's exactly what's happening here. I think he's
a robot wife.
Isn't there a shot somewhere in here of a silhouette of a female?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
I thought that was Lana Lang though in the bottle though. I might.
No. I mean, there's not here. There's a.
I know what you're talking about.
On a different page, there was like a female. It looked like a dark shape. It's not moving. It looks like a.
Oh, it's this one.
That one. Yeah. There you go.
No, I think I thought about this was Bride of Brainiac. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what? He's combining all superheroes in order to create this person.
Maybe.
I mean, if you had all right,
or maybe that's his future body, but he's making an even better body, and he's going to become female because that's the times.
Metal. Okay, metal. So if you had, Brainiac's level of intelligence and access, and you were going to build your perfect anime waifu, would you not kidnap all the best specimens and then just like plug and play?
Oh yeah, obviously.
Okay,
she's got to be the best. Right?
But he didn't grab.
She's got to be like an S-rank pull, like he's got to be better than everybody else's.
From this silhouette, we know that Brainiac is not. We know what his preferences are for those measurements.
I mean, so he deliberately left Superman behind, though.
No, he didn't. That was an accident.
No, that failed to get him.
Yeah. Anyways.
He wants Lex's brain.
Mm-hmm. No, he only needed his head because he had
right. Because he wants his intelligence. So
does he want the intelligence?
Female Super Lex.
It would be really funny. He says, "You know what, Lex? You just have the world's best eyebrows, and that's the touch I want."
He does have some pretty nice eyebrows.
that nice bald head there.
Frankensteining is getting out of control here.
I did want to mention one thing about the last issue where he says that, like, Brainiac says, "I want the smartest man on Earth," and they go after Lex. So it's now, if he thinks that, that's officially Lex is the smartest person on Earth, and that kind of bugs me. I don't need a person to be the smartest person on Earth to say that they're very, very smart. It's just
fair.
Yeah.
And
I would say is Mr. Terrific
Somebody's
not
got to
smart
be
as
the
Lex
smartest,
Luthor?
though. Is it a problem to have him?
Well, there's a few, right? Because you've got there's a couple of them that Lex has even admitted and said, "Hey,
if you're gonna have a completely
Professor
unpowered character to be the arch nemesis of the most powerful man in the world, shouldn't he be the smartest man in the world?"
No, the point that Hutch is making, and I agree with it, is that once, because Brainiac is like 12th or 13th level intellect, which means game recognizes game. So if Brainiac, who's on that level of intelligence, says that man is the smartest, there really isn't that much doubt.
Yeah.
There's no room for wiggle at that point because Brainiac said it.
Yeah, I'm with Fizz on this one. I don't know that Lex is smarter than Michael Holt.
I don't even need there to be one person more smarter. I mean, I just, he can be super smart without there being a ranking system where there's nobody smarter than him.
Well, I suppose that's
but this
true.
is Brainiac. He can't puts everything into categories.
Well, and then like
calculates it all
Batman
out.
just throws out all arguments for intelligence.
All right,
in
so
DC
let me
parodies.
fix this. I'll fix this with again a minor edit. Thanks, Williamson. Call me. So Brainiac says, I need one of the most intelligent and the most, maybe ingenious. He can use another word, like just with a little bit of rephrasing, like his creativity. Because I know in the cartoon, one thing they did is that Lex sold it as I'm a genius who's a creative genius. Because there's different types of genius. There's technical calculation genius, where your brain just calculates numbers. And then there's that sort of intuitive genius where you can intuit things that are not explained. And then there's creative genius. So if Lex had...
so here's the thing.
If Brainiac... Let me finish.
Right?
If Brainiac had said, I need the most creative genius on the planet, that would have been like, okay, he gets a little niche, but not like ranking 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
Here's the thing. Brainiac
also, it's just the people he knows.
Everything is logical to him. He wouldn't have an understanding of what creativity is. So it makes sense to me that he could look at someone and specifically calculate what he thinks is the smartest man in the world.
Well, first of all, I don't necessarily agree with that, because just because you don't understand creativity doesn't mean you can't recognize that it exists.
Brainiac does. He's recognizing it in Lex, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
He also doesn't know everybody on Earth.
Yes, that's very true. But Brainiac has specifically said he needs to create something. That's part of his whole motivation here, is I need to create something.
Mm-hmm.
He's so worked up about it, he's making himself sick over it. He's overheating his little circuits. He's
really horny for that waifu.
He has a mighty need to create something. And so he recognizes that if creation exists, all he's been doing is cataloging. And even when he's making all these robots and things, their purpose is cataloging, not creating. And so he feels the need to create something. Well, who's created more than Lex Luthor, who's not only devised all these robots, come up with all these plans, taken over industries, become the president. Lex is constantly making things, and things that have very multiple purposes that don't fall into neat little lines of things. And I think that even though Brainiac may not be able to quantify what creativity is, that clearly it exists.
I agree with Hutch, though. I think and this is another thing we've often criticized with Williamson, is that little wording changes can make a difference and avoid some of these irksome moments.
You're right. I just don't know what the problem is with having Lex be the smartest man.
The problem is that the problem isn't that. The thing is that once Brainiac says it, it removes any doubt, and it makes it less. It makes the superhero universe less interesting as a result.
Yeah, it also makes it smaller.
Yeah.
So like before you can. Like if you So here's part of the thing is, if you have a situation where, like that Batman is the third best martial artist in the DC universe, right? Well then if he's up and against the fight against Lady Shiva, Batman loses every time. Right. So
that's why it's important to not do. That's why it's important to let characters' actions speak for them, and not necessarily have other characters outside of the narrative say that character is the blankest.
But
or to just always
Brainiac. He quantifies everything. That's what he does.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that
we're not saying it's not. We're not saying it's not in character. We're saying is that it was a poor writing decision.
No, I'm saying that because it's Brainiac, you can have him do that, and you can still disagree with him.
No,
because
see, that's
what he does. He has this very different understanding of reality than any other character in the DC universe.
Problem with that is the fact that Brainiac is established as. He's not necessarily. I know Metron. It's like, is he like
Rhys already said? He already lied about knowing.
It's not about lying. It's not about lying. It's the fact that Brainiac is. It's about that Brainiac is one of, if not one of the top 3. It's like him, Darkseid, and like Metron. I think. Am I missing anybody?
I don't think so.
Okay, yeah, it's Metron, Darkseid.
The Guardians collectively.
Okay, but like we're at like a very, very short list of like literally universally acknowledged right, universally acknowledged smartest beings in the multiverse. And so if he says it, it carries a lot of weight. And that, like I said, even if it's in character, it was still, I think, a poor writing decision because it does have ramifications when that character says it.
So I disagree because I will never take Brainiac seriously on any level because that's always been his thing. He will never truly understand what he is after.
No, that's
like, guys,
that's just your bad understanding.
Yeah,
of
let's
the world.
move. I'm
Let's
sorry.
move on.
I didn't mean to bring this to a grinding
halt. I feel like you guys could talk about this for another 2 hours. I don't want
probably
to.
could.
So this whole thing is all this. In addition to Superman and Lobo escaping the blockade on rocket motorcycles, which is hilarious. And the fact that they're suddenly attacked by Zarnians out in space, which is pretty awesome. The rest of the thing is all of these intrigues going on inside of Brainiac's ship, which is hiding out.
I was going to say, like, when you see this panel, it's like, a figure and cycle sold separately. It's like the little editorial box that pops into my head because it's like, that someone said, "Oh, that's a merchandising opportunity. Hey, get McFarlane on the phone."
Well, especially because in what universe does Superman need a motorcycle?
So the point is that they needed it to sneak past the blockade not because they couldn't fight their way out, but if the Guardians have their little Oa symbol, and that's the blockade, and if they, because they're under the planet's under quarantine from the Guardians for whatever Green Lantern reason, and if they try to get out of the planet, the Guardians will show up and try to stop them. And it's not that they couldn't defeat them, but they'll lose more time because in dealing with that. So sneaking is what they want to do. These cycles are going to help them sneak.
So here's the thing: is it makes sense for Lobo to grab his cycle because the thing is they need something small and fast. Yeah. Right. But Superman.
Smaller and faster.
This thing is bigger than him. Yeah.
I think the rationale from the comic was that the Supercorp people had put tech on these things that were supposed to be like cloaking of some kind.
Yeah.
Cloaking.
That's right.
Yeah,
right. That's right.
Yeah. This is cloaking stealth tech to help them get past the Guardians because they don't want to fight the Guardians for an hour, and then Brainiac's ship is on the other side of the universe.
So I love
So the Lobo cycle there is not his cycle because those were taken by the two.
Well, I think they maybe
whatever.
I wondered if they hadn't if Supercorp hadn't gotten it from Farm and Graft after Farm and Graft were defeated in the last.
You'd think he'd say something about like, "I love having this back," but instead he talks like they gave him a new cycle, and yet it's his skull on the front cycle. So
I think any cycle that Lobo jumps on becomes his cycle.
Maybe I don't know.
He asked the Supercorp people to install the
skull on the front.
Yeah, and they obliged.
I should think that his cycle would look exactly like Superman's, except maybe black.
You're right.
Maybe they could take a second to paint it black, but they wouldn't design a completely different vehicle for him.
We are seeing this in Lobo's mind.
Maybe.
So he sees
in the world
his
of
awesome
superheroes.
cycle, And he
everything
sees
is
Superman's
customized.
cycle as a super cycle.
I agree. I'm agreeing with Hutch a bit. Like, it's a little much to have them put the because if they're in a rush, right? Because the whole point was we have to do this fast. They don't have the time to. Oh, we put the custom skull trim you have on the. I will also say that this is where also, ladies and gentlemen, I know you all already forgot it, but I need to remind you to also forget that Philip Kennedy Johnson made Superman gave him the ability to teleport across the universe at a whim. So I'm glad we forgot that, because it's stupid, and you should be ashamed of yourself, Phil. So
he couldn't just have a teleportation device built into his belt or something, just something like that to explain away. Oh yeah,
It gets worse the further back you go into Superman. Like he has feats that are genuinely
He sneezed out a
irrational
solar
in the,
system.
Metal,
in the
you're right.
mathematic sense.
You guys are
Right.
right. The problem I have was that this happened less than 20 issues ago.
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
Oh no, I don't think he's giving that as an excuse. He's just pointing out.
No,
Like,
what I'm saying,
it gets worse.
How
I'm
awful
saying
it
that
is.
this makes it worse that we already had forgotten that conveniently, because we were supposed to have moved on from that, and then Phil shows up and says, "Nah, let me remember something stupid."
Anyway, let's keep going.
Anyway,
Keep going.
so there's all this to move it along. There's all this stuff going on. The super characters are trying to figure out how to break out of their little cages, and wouldn't you know it,
Where did Kara get a skull?
It's in
Where'd
the
you get
last
that?
issue. I went back to look for it. She breaks apart
She
a
was ripping away
Brainiac
the
robot,
robos,
and she's
yeah.
holding the skull and she's teleported.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's so earlier in this issue she doesn't have it, and then she does have it. What that means is she set it on the ground to pound on the wall. So she ends up grabbing this robot skull and uses it to short her way out, but she's still tiny. Aww.
Tiny. Were they shrunken? Were these?
Yeah,
bottles
because
shrunken?
The
I
bottling shrunk.
actually went back through the issue to double check it, but in every panel there are perspective issues that when they're in their bottles, they're small in the bottles. And they're not like tiny necessarily in the bottles, but they're all smaller in the bottles, like action figure size.
Okay.
And then
Which I'm okay with, because it makes it easier for you to transport people.
Right. And then when they're out being experimented on, they're back to full size. So Brainiac is clearly, expanding and contracting people for the
that's just confusing. That's just very confusing. And see, this is where a good editor would have her say something like, "Fortunately, in my fight, I grabbed this off of one of the guys, and I have the knowledge of how to do this because I dated a Brainiac."
That's fair.
That's where, I mean, because you should not need to go pick up the last issue to say, where'd you get a skull? Yeah.
That's a good criticism. And I would also say that it should have been noted that Brainiac is shrinking and he's doing size shenanigans. And he could have, I think, a line tossed in there about him mentioning how he's shrinking and growing them would have been fine. Yeah.
See, I took this as a last page reveal that we weren't supposed to know that until now, that that they're actually small in the bottles, because
I think when I went back through and read it again, I got the impression that she thought they would expand once the wall was breached.
Right.
And then they didn't, because there's apparently two separate processes. So Kara being like, well, I know what to do because Brainiac was my old boyfriend. And it's like,
she got it half right.
Lady, you're wrong.
I like a better explanation for this that they should have used, because historically Kara's been a hothead, so if she just didn't think about what she was doing first and did it, would have been totally in character.
I like this. Yeah. I want to briefly mention why I like this. It's always frustrating when the superhero instantly gets out of the supervillain's trap, and it's just like, well, supervillain, you really suck at trap. So in this case, it's like she gets a little bit of a win, because she's able to short circuit half of the problem, but the other half still remains. And I'm like, all right, this is a good narrative choice. If she just instantly broken out and everything's fine, it's like, oh my gosh, Brainiac, can you construct anything right? Here it's like, half of it was, and their powers are still gone, by the way. They were depowered in the bottle. So she's action figure size, no superpowers, and there's Zarnians all over the place.
Well, and the other thing I like to say is I love what Connor has to say to end the issue. Kara, I think we have a smaller problem. That's great comic book writing right there.
That is. Yeah. I didn't appreciate that they had how many times? 2 times, 3 times that they said go kick his ass. It's like I know ass is a minor swear word, but I feel like ever since they permitted that, they don't get more imaginative in what people say because they said it twice in this issue. Different characters did. Lois and Supergirl.
All right,
and
well,
it's like
then what do you think of the Zarnian like just moving a couple letters and saying Batish instead of?
Oh, I hate that so much.
Bastish instead of bastard?
No,
like it's a combination of 2 words.
Yeah, it's like
Bastish was that's like a Zarnian word. Lobo's always called things Bastish.
Yeah, it's still really still very close to anyway.
Bastich is in place of bastard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's
the combination between.
I'm just saying, if you're gonna have a problem with ass, I feel like it's a similar problem. When you very clearly know which 2 curse words he's saying there too.
I don't really care. It's like ass is like I say, ass is a minor swear word, but it's like back when you prohibited people from saying kick his ass, then all your comics weren't just I'm going to kick your ass.
They had to come with more flavorful ways of saying things.
Like,
and I think, and that's why Bastich is a thing, is because you couldn't just say bastard in a comic.
Right.
But I think the other side of it too is there's a difference in nature between, like Kara Zor-El and Lois Lane, and there's a difference in their personality than there is with Lobo and Lobo's people, right?
I'm actually less bothered by Lois doing it because she is an army brat.
Yes.
She was raised by a guy who probably said a lot worse than that.
Oh yeah.
I think
Kara had a bad temper, but was always a good girl. And that was one of the things where you wouldn't. I mean, you wouldn't see Kara wouldn't. I mean, Kara wouldn't swear. I mean, that's the thing is that's not part of her. It's just like if you're just like, if Clark walks up to you and like, listen here, you son of a bitch, you're about to have a real bad day because Clark doesn't talk like that.
Right.
So ever since Superman Batman Apocalypse, I think they've taken a turn with some versions of Supergirl to make her the angry, wrath-filled.
Right.
Yeah, because they even did
because
the whole
what
Red
else
Lantern
is new?
thing too.
Well, my thing is, I even remember back in like the Silver Age stuff, she would have a temper on her, and she'd get.
She's always had a temper, but she wasn't like wrath.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember she's just Karen Danvers now.
Yeah. If you remember back when this goes back to, I'm sorry to always be going back to John Byrne, but when
the man did a good Superman. Let's face it.
Yeah. If you remember when Lana Lang was found, there's a bloody trail that Clark follows, and he finds Lana in like a closet outside his apartment, where she's been brutalized by Lex Luthor, and she says, they have your parents, and he goes to confront Lex, and that's where he finds out that Lex has the kryptonite ring, and Lex actually beats him up, and there's a close-up shot of Superman saying "damn you, Luthor."
Yeah,
damn is a minor swear word, but him saying that, it's like, this is a very serious moment where he thinks,
because it's rare. Well, you're saying
at the time it was rare. Unfortunately, after that he said "damn" all the time, and it kind of watered it down. But it was like that was a powerful moment, because this is Mr. Great Scott guy,
right?
Yeah, actually saying "damn" because he thinks because of a terrible thing that's happened to Lana and to supposedly his parents, but he finds out his parents are actually all right, and Lex never had them.
I think what we've learned this evening is that Hutch is not an ass man.
Good God.
And that's enough internet today.
That's a show, people. Next week.
You set that up perfectly.
Make the picture go away so people can see me, because I'm hiding behind Fizz right now.
Oh, there you go. Sorry about
Thank
that.
you. So whenever we go stacked like that, I'm always hid behind Fizz and anybody else who comments.
Well, like we could change that around by moving people's orders. See, that's something that we can do.
See, then people can see my reaction. I played that when you said just not an ass. Nobody got to see it.
No.
Well, now we know.
Yeah.
Isn't
But
that
that was a good closing. That was a good way to end the show.
so? Next week, are we doing more? Are we doing the next 2 issues because they are available? Want to wrap up the house of
Is it the end? Is it a 4-part?
No. It's going, but we will be caught up officially at that point.
I see.
I think we should take a week and then catch.
Take a week, okay.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm not sure what the plan for next week is. We'll have to figure that out. We've got some stuff in the hopper, but nothing on deck, so we'll get that all figured out. And final thoughts. You like it? Don't like it? Where are we at? Hutch, you go first.
Oh gosh, you went to me first. Well, I think we've said pretty much everything. I don't like the watering down of Lobo, having him be just a wannabe General, what's his name, General Chozo or whatever his name is. It's like I don't like him patterning himself on somebody else. He is the main man, and having a planet of Lobos, having a city of Lobos, it's I don't really like that as much, but I like what they're doing so far with Lobo. And it is interesting. It is interesting that after saying the Zarnians are all gone, hey, you come up with the idea of the guy who has, he's basically an environmentalist who saves a copy of extinct species. Brainiac Brainiac's like, I have Zarnians, and I think that's a cool idea. I do think the invasion of Metropolis went way too fast. It's like you never even saw them. What are they doing? Are they attacking the people on the streets? It's like immediately they start fighting the Kryptonians who, it's like if he hadn't called out the Kryptonians, nothing would have happened. But basically this was all to drag out every member of the Kryptonians family and all the bad guys somehow. And they just happen to get the parasite off the street. I don't know how, but they, it's interesting. It's kind of reaching in places, but it feels like it goes too fast. Stuff like the LL being actually Brainiac is just like, bam, we don't have time to enjoy this, and I feel like it's a little rushed in that way. The second issue, it's like there's so much time spent giving one panel check-ins on every member of the people who have been bottled up that it's, I don't know. I'm not enjoying it a lot, but it's a nice idea so far, and I hope it goes somewhere. I'm interested in seeing where it goes. That's on to you, Twitless.
Okay, so I think once again it shows us the strengths and weaknesses of Williamson. I think it does a really great job of putting in the Superman moments. I saw that. It does a good job of having like those inspirational moments. Williamson's a good moment writer. But being a good moment writer doesn't all automatically translate into being a fantastic storyteller. Those are different skill sets. And so I definitely want to see him build on his strengths while also addressing some of the weak parts of his writing. And I think that stronger editing, as we've always mentioned, is something. Stronger editing would help. I agree with Hutch's points about the structure needing some tightening. Or expansion in some places. Things just happen very, very fast. Got to get to the next thing. Got to get to the next thing. Got to get to the next thing. It almost feels like Williamson's in a rush. And I don't know if that is him or if that's editorial saying, hey, here's our schedule lined up for the next, 7 months. You get this much time to do your thing. And then we've got, I don't know if there's just things going on at DC behind the scenes. Again, typically we learn about all those things way later. In retrospect, when it's like, here's what was going on. Here's how hard it was for me to tell the story I wanted to tell. So I don't know to the extent that this is Williamson himself telling a story he wants to tell and having weaknesses, or if there's other factors involved. All I know is that the product in my hand has some good moments, and I am interested. Brainiac's a character I like a lot, but these weaknesses are things that have cropped up time and time again. And so we're going to keep critiquing them. So, but I am interested. I am interested in seeing where it goes. And parts of it I even liked better than some of the Dawn of DC Superman stuff. Like the threats feel very real. I didn't roll my eyes as much. There's some stuff with Farm and Graft I rolled my eyes at, but this feels pretty legit. So definitely better than Phil Kennedy Johnson's nonsense that he's done recently. So, jeez Louise. Cartoonicus, what did you think of what you read?
Well, this new arc is already very different from the last one. I think I've given up on any semblance of this being some kind of homage to the Golden Age Superman or anything. Mainly, I will stick with it until the day they inevitably make Lex a villain again, and then I'm out.
Okay. Rhys, what did you think?
I liked it. I want to read more. I'm a little disappointed you want to take a week off, but okay, that's fine. So no, I mean I'm digging it. I'm liking the ideas as a whole. I'm getting real strong vibes for the overarching story, so I want to see how close to right I am. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to see where Williamson has taken the whole Lena Luthor thing, because I think that's one of the most promising nuggets or threads that was dangled in the last story arc with it. So I kind of want to see where we go with that. Yeah, that's it. I also want to see more of like Superman's interaction with his extended family. I think that'd be fun to see in this sort of context. So, but yeah, that's it. I'm excited for it.
Cool.
Anybody not go?
Well, I was going to ask Metal, but Metal didn't read it. So,
okay. Yeah, I didn't read it. I could tell you my minor thoughts from participating in this panel and seeing everything, though.
Minor thoughts. Thoughts.
My minor thoughts are: it looked fun. It had a lot of stuff that I would want from a bigger kind of crossover Superman story, but overall, I just don't like what they're doing with Supergirl, who's my favorite DC character. So that's my mixed feelings on it.
Now, are they doing that to Supergirl, or is DC?
Well, I'm not blaming him. He's just trying to work with what they're giving him, because everybody else is screwing up Supergirl before it gets to him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. That's the story. So that's the show. We will check back next week with something new and interesting, and that'll be fun. If you guys are following Ideal Comics over on Global Comics, you'll notice we just dropped yesterday another grab it strip for everybody. We are up to 414 page views on that thing. So grab it is, of course, written and drawn by my boy Talias and Rhys, and I'm coloring it and lettering it. But yeah, it's been real fun. So got 20 strips that are, 19 strips that are up there for you to peruse. But yeah. And then come back next week for more comic discussions as we while our way out of June. We'll say goodbye to June next week. We're not doing anything fancy for it. Let's start. Anything that I forget anything important? I can't even remember. I'm sorry. I'm starting to leave.
Just tell everybody to go to my channel and check out the Super Friends review that I did, and if they haven't seen it yet, and I know they haven't seen it yet because they haven't got the numbers that all these people stopping by would have given it. So.
Oh yeah. It's really funny. It's a great review.
Thank you.
Hutch and a friend of his do a reaction video to an episode of Super Friends.
That is oddly prescient.
Yeah, it is the Super Friends versus Google AI. It's definitely worth checking out.
Thank you.
So, I watched it like a week and a half ago. It's awesome. So anyway, that's it. That's the show. We're going to call it. We're going to hit the button. We're going to say goodbye. And until next time, get out there and read some comics. You guys have a good one.
Peace out.
Bye.